Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Southerner's Northern Garden. It's been a few weeks since my last video, but in Ohio it's been very cold and we've had snow on the ground for like 3 weeks, and I haven't wanted to shoot any more videos inside because I felt that was getting boring. So today I'm doing a video on setting up my GreenStalk. I've never had a GreenStalk before. I ordered it a few weeks ago and it arrived, and I just have had it in the basement and haven't gotten to set it up yet. So I'm going to be planting the one behind me right here, and I just wanted to bring you all along for the journey. So here we go. The GreenStalk system is nice simply because it allows you to stack these containers on top of each other, and they're very deep. So they have a new version that's quite shorter that you can plant herbs and stuff in. Like I said, I've never had one of these before, but they're an amazing little tool that you can just vertically stack your garden if you're limited in space. And I have my potting soil here, which is Miracle-Gro Organic. I got it from Costco. Like I've said in previous videos, Costco or Sam's Club is a great investment for any gardener. These gloves I got from Costco, I love them. They have a vinyl coating on them, and because I have such hard clay soil, I go through usually at least a pack of these every summer, depending on how much stuff I'm planting. And I'm not worried about investing. They're rather cheap and disposable, but they'll last quite a long while if you're not using them for terrible clay soil digging like I am. So we're just going to fill these up to the top with soil, and then I'm going to get it all assembled, and then I'll plant my veggies in there. So I did my calculation based on how much the GreenStalk online says it holds, and it said it would roughly hold 4 of these bags based on my calculations. So I'm gonna fill these up a little more, and it looks like that's gonna be pretty accurate, and I'll have some soil left over because there's 5 tiers. So the great thing about the GreenStalks is they have these little tiers that go in between each of the containers, and there's tiny holes that correspond to each slot where you can plant a vegetable, and you just align it to that slot and you attach the next tier on top. Just like that. So I'm going to be more careful and not dump soil in these reservoirs, because if I do, then the water won't flow properly when I'm watering it. I do recommend you fill these containers with potting soil and not garden soil. Garden soil is going to be not for containers, and it's going to be much heavier and more difficult for the roots of your plants to get going. So these bags of soil I got from Costco. It is organic and it's 50 quarts, and it looks like I'm only going to need 3 bags. So if you're going out there and trying to estimate how much soil you'll need to fill these up, I would say it's going to be roughly maybe 125 quarts. I am also a very messy gardener, if you can't tell. So I got dirt everywhere, so I got my leaf blower here to blow some of that off. So the last piece to this is this little container here. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see. It actually has a fill line, and so what happens is you fill this up with water. Some water goes through the center to feed the tubes that are lower, or the tiers that are lower, and the other drips directly into the top tier. So there's lines here. If you fill it all the way up, it waters all of the tiers just perfectly in this amount. And it just sits on top, and you can plant around it in these containers. And you have perfect space. I'm gonna put some kale in each one of these, and it's going to be beautiful sitting here on my patio. So this is the GreenStalk when it's completed. They come in brown, black, and there's several other colors. And they have a new version that, like I said, is a little shorter, and a kid's version, I think, that has fewer tiers. If you don't want to use all 5 tiers, you certainly don't have to. The mover is a separate, you can buy separately. And I purchased it just because I wanted to move it around my patio easily, because we're constantly moving things around. And once this gets water in it, it might be quite heavy, but you can disassemble it fairly easy because they just stack simply on top of each other if you need to move it elsewhere in the garden after it's put together. You have to be careful of your plants, of course, when you do that, but otherwise it's a great little system to grow a lot in a vertical space. So let me show you the kale that I've grown from seed. They've been growing for approximately 4 weeks. The kale that I'm going to be putting in there. I also have some Swiss chard. It's a little smaller. I may wait to put the Swiss chard out later. This is Casper kale. Both of these are Casper. I've got some ragged jack, and some red Ursa. They'll get quite large, but they were getting way too big to be in the basement anymore, so we'll see how they do. I typically have not planted kale out this early, but our weather looks like it might be okay, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna try it, see how it works. So I'm going to be starting some strawberries this weekend, and in the spring, later in the spring, when those get going, I'm going to be putting strawberries in this as well. So check out this root system. And this is probably a ton of kale. A lot of people don't like kale. I find that it's delicious, and I eat salads directly with only kale. It's also great added in soups. If you've never tried kale before, it can be bitter in the summer with the heat. Some people don't like it for that reason because they think it's too bitter, but I think it's delicious, and I enjoy a bitter green more than most people. So this is the ragged jack kale. It's a little more ragged, of course. I think it gets a little bigger than the Casper kale. We'll see how it does. These are all new varieties. I typically grow dinosaur kale and blue Scotch curled kale. I've also grown the red or purple kale. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But this year I thought I'd try some new varieties, and I have some seeds for the others if I want to go back and try those kales later in the spring. But check out the root system on this. It's just, they've gone crazy. They've doubled. These have only, I started them from seed 3 to 4 weeks ago, and they have tripled in size this week. And since the snow has melted, I had to come out and get these in the ground so they would start flourishing because they were getting too big inside. So kale does quite well in my zone. I've had kale live completely through the winter, and I harvest on it. It doesn't grow quite well in the winter. It stays small, of course, because there's not enough heat, but it survives and starts growing again in the spring. However, I typically end up ripping it out and replacing it with new kale because it can get quite woody and just bulky. So I plant new every year, and it grows so quickly. Like I said, these have doubled in size this past week, if not tripled. So they grow very quickly once they get going. I've just got to show you the root system on this. It's so amazing because these are only a few weeks old. Let's see if that's in focus. There we go. I got the seeds for these just online. In my gardener is where I get a lot of my seeds. These are new seeds because this is the first year I'm growing them. My other kale that I previously grown, I still have some that is a couple years old, and it will be perfectly fine. I had started gardening seriously 3 years ago, and I've purchased very few new seeds since then. I reuse as many as I can. This is red Ursa, so it's a little different than the Ragged Jack that I showed you previously. It's very similar, but I'm excited to try it as well. It's supposed to be delicious. And I'm just going to plant the very bottom of this with kale. Like I said, I have some strawberries that I'm going to get started this weekend, and that'll be a separate video from seed. I have not had the best luck buying bare root strawberries. I know a lot of people do. The varieties that I've got, I don't know if they sit in the store too long or I can't find a good source for them, but by the time I get them, the roots are usually too dried out. And I have tried to grow strawberries from seed before, and that hasn't worked well either. So this is mostly just an experiment this year, and if I can't end up getting them to grow from seed well, I'll just end up buying some. So I planted the bottom of this container with kale, and at the top I'm going to plant some Swiss chard. Swiss chard, a lot of people don't eat Swiss chard or know about Swiss chard. I love it as a salad green. It's become my favorite salad green because it grows, at least in my garden, if I can give it a little shade all year round, and it tastes great. So this is Rainbow Light Swiss chard. You can see the yellow stems, and then this variety has red stems, and there's also orange. They're all mixed in the same seed packet, so you just kind of get what you get when it comes up. Last year all I ended up with red, but I was excited to see some yellow here this year. So I'm just going to plant these around the top, and then I will probably start some more Swiss chard. Check this out, even the roots are purple. I will probably start some more Swiss chard in from seed right after this that I can plant in my large garden. Because last year I fell in love with Swiss chard and I only had a couple plants, and there certainly wasn't enough to pick off of. So definitely got to put more in my garden this year. These are the only greens I've started yet. I will typically direct sow my lettuce because I use the cut and come again method, and so I sow a lot of lettuce seed together and it never bulks up into an actual plant, but I can pick individual leaves to assemble a salad anytime I want. And I've got 4 more places to plant this, so this is going to be the perfect amount. I might have to thin this a little bit, we'll see. This is kind of an experiment as well. There's more plants in here than just one. I didn't thin these seedlings like I did the kale, but we're going to see how it works. And also another factor, do as I say, don't do as I do. I did not harden off these seedlings. They came directly from the basement, but because Ohio has a typically gray, not sunny winter, despite what you're seeing today, I think they'll do okay. And I'm not that concerned about it. It's still very early. If they end up not making it or not transplanting well, then I will restart from seed. Nothing lost. That's the great thing about growing from seed. It's extremely cheap. These plants, if you actually let them go to seed to collect their seed, they produce a ton. And all of these have very healthy looking root systems. The chard was started at the same time the kale is. It just grows a little slower, so. One more. And like I said, I'm only doing these 2 layers because the kale will get quite large and I don't want to plant and just take over as much space as I can. But I wanted to go ahead and get the soil into those containers to give it some bulk and weightiness. And then when spring comes, I won't have to lug more soil around here to fill it up. So I'm going to put the water reservoir back on top. And as I mentioned, it's got a little wet now, but these have, just like the medium tiers, they have tiny holes to water the top tier. And then the extra water goes through this column, which feeds through the entire container and flows to those discs that disperse the water. It's a great little system. They're a family-owned business. If you've not heard of them, certainly check them out. My friend Jess from Roots and Refuge Farm has a coupon code. You can use Roots10 to get 10% off. And I got this one for around $100 when they were doing a sale not too long ago. If you wait for them to do a sale, you can also use Jess's coupon on top of that. I'll put the coupon code below. So here it is, everyone, the finished GreenStalk. Like I said, I think there's a total of 32 places you can place plants. I've only filled the bottom tier and the top tier, and the middle tiers I will fill with strawberries when that time comes. Or they also send you, when you purchase it online, they send you this little packet of materials that show you how to set it up. And they also very nicely include some seeds. So I've seen tomatoes grown in this thing, green bush beans. They send these along, which green beans grow quite well in them. And also just some mixed lettuce if you wanted to plant lettuce in them. I'm going to plant the lettuce directly in my garden. And these are organic seeds that they send out, which is really nice. So thank you guys for joining me today. I have 4 extra kale, both the red Ursa variety. All of them look like they're red Ursa. There's 1 Casper here and 1 Ragged Jack. So I've got a complete variety of the 3 I've grown. I'm going to plant these directly in the garden because they will get massive and provide me greens for the rest of the summer. Thank you guys for joining me. Stick around. This weekend I'm going to be planting some strawberries and getting my peppers started. And so follow along for that. If you haven't started your seeds yet, get you some greens in the ground. They're cheap, easy to start from seed. Like I said, these are 3 or 4 weeks old. I use the same potting soil that I used in my geranium video. You can check that out if you want the mix recipe. And also I grew these under my grow lights. You can check out the grow light video I have as well. And in a world full of hate, be a light. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.